The president returns for his first address of this new term, and amidst these global actions he has been taking with major repercussions. President Trump freezing all military aid for Ukraine overnight, a move that helps Russia after that tense Oval Office meeting Friday. So the U.S. is yanking about $1 billion in arms and ammo from Ukraine while Trump is pressing forward with those new tariffs and what many have described as a looming trade war. These moves are now rattling U.S. markets, and that's one response to Trump's new tariffs on America's three largest trading partners. We'll remind you that is Mexico, Canada, and China. Two of those immediately retaliating with their own tariffs, as we showed you here. Mexico says it will as well join with countermeasures that are against the United States and the Trump administration, but that can raise prices for really many or most American consumers. So this escalation, we want to remind you, right now has markets slumping, both major stock indexes down 2 days in a row, and that's wiping out most of the market gains since inauguration. Here's another perspective tonight. Rupert Murdoch's conservative Wall Street Journal knocking what it calls Trump's dumbest tariff plunge yet. So this is the growing concern right now from Wall Street to Main Street in a political era that is right now far from normal. A newly elected president will give a speech with one tradition that actually has not shifted much. You try to show the country that the State of the Union is strong under a given administration's policies. But this one comes after an election that was, remember, all about high prices, economic anxiety. We heard all about that during the election. And that makes an uphill battle for the president tonight as business leaders, financial experts, and many, many Americans are so seriously concerned about this domestic news, the lurch towards higher tariffs, higher price risks for sure, and the slumping stocks.
President Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China going into effect at midnight, and we're already seeing some economic retaliation.
The president imposed a 25% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. from Mexico and Canada.
The consumer will likely see price increases over the next couple of days.
This Dodge Ram truck, $80,000. Instantly became $100,000.
I mean, the lack of any thought about this, David, is stunning.
I mean, tariffs are actually, we've had a lot of experience with them. They're an act of war to some degree.
It's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
I think they're going to raise prices. They're a tax on American consumers.
I'm concerned about the tariffs that just kicked in today and how that's going to affect me.
That's what we're hearing all the way across the country. We have some great guests standing by, but as we begin tonight, I'm very curious your thoughts on what's important tonight.
Well, I've been a part of a lot of these State of the Union addresses, and we could just sit here and talk all about how people prepare for State of the Union addresses and what presidents do and what they're thinking about and the communications meetings. But there's absolutely nothing normal about this address, as you just said. There's nothing normal about the first 6 weeks of the presidency. And the things that I'm watching for, one are, this is typically a way to kind of expand your base of support beyond your core base of support. Trump has not done that at all to date. I don't expect him necessarily to do that tonight. His inaugural address was far more scorched earth than any major speech he gave in his first term. We'll see. But the other piece is, what is the response in the room? And I think that's a really interesting component of this. I think a lot of Democrats are waiting to see what fire is in the belly of Democrats in elected office, but also what Republicans will do. Are they actually going to just sit there, or stand, I should say, when Trump comes out and says, hey, listen, we're going to cut off cyber actions on Russia? Are they going to applaud when he talks about cutting off military assistance to Ukraine? We'll see. But those are a couple of things I'm watching for.
Right. As you said, it's not normal, and it is live action for the country. It's one of the only addresses like this each year, so you're going to get that real-time kind of without aids and without testing, what do Republicans want to do? I'll tell you one thing I'm watching for, which is straightforward, but sometimes the straightforward answer is part of the answer.
Sometimes.
Are you better off than you were 6 weeks ago? We had a big election, as I mentioned. It was about a lot of things, including the economy, and whether you thought Donald Trump was going to fix it, he certainly talked about it a lot. He certainly savaged the Biden administration over it, as you know. And now we're 6 weeks in. And so you're going to have voters look up and they're going to hear a pitch about how great things are and how well these policies work. But if you are anyone getting on a plane, you feel safer than 6 weeks ago. If you deal with the government in any way, from plane safety to nuclear safety to food safety, do you think all these cuts have you safer than you were 6 weeks ago? If you deal in any part of the economy that has market investment, and not everyone is trading. A lot of people are just living their lives. But whether that's in your retirement savings or you're at a company where slumps could affect your jobs, do you feel better off than you were 6 weeks ago with the markets sliding this way? And then, as we just saw in that package, and some of that was from business and Fox coverage, we mentioned Wall Street Journal, it's not some partisan thing. If you are buying products, cars, eggs, or anything in between, do they seem like they're cheaper than they were 6 weeks ago? I mean, Jen, these are a lot of the real world questions that are going to line up against the oratory.
Yeah, I mean, the tariffs were just put into place last night at midnight, which means people are fearful, as we just saw in that package, but they don't even know the impact yet.
Yeah.
The impact isn't even being felt yet. The other thing, I know we're about to talk to Ken Martin, is that the backdrop of this is also the head of the House Republican Congressional Campaign Committee. They basically confirmed today that they're telling members not to hold town hall meetings because they've been going so poorly across the country. And polling has moved downward for Trump. So that is what is happening out there in the country as people are watching the speech, regardless of what the response is in the chamber.
Yeah, as you say, you've been through a lot of them, and that's sort of really relevant to where we're going. We have a lot of great guests to hear from. So Jen and I are here, but let's bring in, as mentioned, the brand new chair of the Democratic National Committee, Ken Martin. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ari. Thank you, Jen.
Great. What do you see as the challenge and opportunity for the Democratic Party tonight?
Well, look, if the past is any prelude to what we'll see tonight, Donald Trump will do everything he can do to distract from his terrible record so far, which, of course, he promised the American people he was going to focus on making their lives easier, more affordable. He's done nothing but in the first 6 weeks, as you said, right? Whose side is he really on? He's not on the side of the American people, clearly. His record has been disastrous. And these tariffs that he just put in place, this trade war that he's just initiated throughout the world, is going to make it even more difficult for average, everyday Americans to afford their lives. So again, he's broken every single promise he's made to the American people. And for what? To line the pockets of his fat cat billionaire friends like Elon Musk and others who've done nothing and who could care less about hardworking Americans at this time.
I think you might be old enough, Jen and I are old enough to remember when it was a big deal when one Republican yelled out, "You lie," against then Democratic President Obama. And the view was the president was giving a normal speech and the response was abnormal, disrespectful, breaching decorum. Now you have a lot of concern and examples, if you look at the Friday Oval Office meeting and other places, that it is the president breaching decorum. But does that mean that you think the Democrats should have a certain approach tonight, going different than the past, protesting in a more perhaps direct way?
Look, you know, I think it's important for Democrats, whether they're attending tonight or not, is to make sure that right after we get back to the districts, we listen to the American people, we understand the pain and the anxiety that most people throughout this country, regardless of party, Democrats, Republicans, independents, Americans alike, are all facing the same challenges. There is deep economic anxiety in this country, and rightfully so. And Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and J.D. Vance have done nothing to address that. And so I think it's really critical right now. Look, Donald Trump's going to do what he always does in these speeches. He's going to pit Americans against one another. He's going to blame people for their economic woes. He's going to turn us on one another. And what we need to do as a party is remind folks throughout this country, whether you voted with us or not, we're still going to be your champion. If you're a hardworking American just hoping to put bread on your table and maybe eke out a better life for your families, the Democrats are your champion. And so what's important tonight is not Donald Trump's speech. What's important tonight for Democrats is to come out unified with a focus on making sure Americans know that we're on their side and not on the side of the rich, fat cat billionaires who have bought this government.
Ken, one of the things I think people watching are hoping for from the DNC and from Democrats out there, as Ari's kind of referenced, is a little fire in the belly and a response to what they're going to see tonight. I know you talked when you were running about a war room and about being really aggressive. What can we expect? Is there going to be real-time fact-checking? Are you going to have people out there calling out the lies? What are the specifics of what you think we should all be looking out for?
Yeah, you'll see all of that,
DNC?
right? You'll see all of that. Of course, the real-time fact-checking, of course, you'll see responses from Democratic members of Congress, other elected officials, and we're going to be aggressive about it. You know, at the end of the day, as I've said before, when the stakes are as high as they are for the American people, it's incumbent upon Democrats right now to stiffen your spine, lift your head, and resist the excesses and extremes of this administration. As I said when I was elected, the gloves are off. We're going to throw a punch. What Donald Trump is doing to the American people right now requires nothing less of the Democratic Party than to stand up and fight back for the American people. Again, not just for Democrats, but all Americans who are working their asses off right now and feeling like this president has abandoned them and their families, all to help Elon Musk make more money.